Marriage equality officially reversed in Bermuda. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Thursday, February 8. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. Bermuda's Governor John Rankin on Wednesday ended weeks of uncertainty by signing off on the Domestic Partnership Act 2017, which ends same-sex marriages in the British Overseas Territory as well as on Bermuda-registered cruise ships. He said he had given his royal assent after careful consideration in line with his responsibilities under the Constitution. The legislation, which replaces same-sex marriage with domestic partnerships, was passed by the House of Assembly and Senate since last December, but had been awaiting Governor Rankin's assent to become law. The act permits any couple, whether heterosexual or homosexual, to enter into a domestic partnership. It gives same-sex couples rights equivalent to those enjoyed by heterosexual married couples. The law reverses a May 2017 court ruling legalizing gay marriage on the island. Justice Charles Etta Simmons had ruled then in a lawsuit brought by Bermudan Winston Godwin and his Canadian partner Greg DeRoche that the island's Registrar General could not reject a gay couple's application to marry. Same-sex couples who tied the knot after the ruling and before the Domestic Partnership Act, that's before the act took effect on Wednesday, will keep their status. While Bermuda is the first country in the world to reverse marriage equality, Minister of Home Affairs Walton Brown, who had tabled the Domestic Partnership Act, said the island is also now among the first in the English-speaking Caribbean to pass a law that provides legal recognition to same-sex couples. Well, the UK government on Thursday expressed disappointment that Bermuda has abolished same-sex marriage, but it says it would have been wrong to block the move by the British Overseas Territory. British Prime Minister Theresa May's spokesman James Slack said the UK was seriously disappointed by the decision, but he said the bill was democratically passed by the Parliament of Bermuda and Britain's relationship with the Overseas Territory is based on partnership and respect for their right to democratic self-governance. Some opposition politicians in the UK had criticised the government, saying it should have intervened to prevent the change, which they described as discriminatory. Responding to a question in Parliament on Thursday about why the British government allowed the governor to give assent to the legislation, UK Foreign Office Minister Harriet Baldwin said there was no basis on which to do so.
We are obviously disappointed about the removal of same-sex marriage in Bermuda. The Domestic Partnerships Act, to which the Governor of Bermuda assented yesterday, does ensure that Bermudians who have been legally married in Bermuda since the Supreme Court decision will retain their married status and enjoy the same legal rights as those in domestic partnerships. Less than a year ago, same-sex couples had no legal recognition at all under Bermudan law. While the Act withdraws the entitlement for same-sex couples to marry, it replaces it with a provision for domestic partnerships for all couples, regardless of gender. The intent of the Act is to provide domestic partners with the same benefits as married couples, including provision for pensions, inheritance, healthcare, tax and immigration. After full and careful consideration in regard to Bermuda's constitutional and international obligations, the Secretary of State decided that in these circumstances it would not be appropriate to use this power to block legislation, which can only be used where there is a legal or constitutional basis for doing so, and even then only in exceptional circumstances.
The lower house of Antigua and Barbuda's Parliament has passed an amendment to legislation that will increase the age at which a child can be held responsible for a criminal act. The Child Justice Amendment Bill 2018 seeks to move the age of criminal responsibility to 12. Amar Sayers of ABS News has that story.
The Transformation Minister, the Honourable Samantha Marshall, outlined the objective of the amendment.
This amendment seeks to raise the age of criminal responsibility from age 8 years to 12 years. I note that the existing bill speaks to the age of 10 years, but we are seeking, in fact, having had discussions with the Honorable Attorney General's office, to have it move from 8 to 12 years.
Even with this change to the law, Minister Marshall noted that prosecution of a child under 14 still cannot occur unless a court deems him or her fit for trial.
However, notwithstanding the age of criminal responsibility being raised to 12 years of age, a child who is under the age of 14 years cannot be prosecuted for an offense unless the court first proves beyond reasonable doubt that the child has the capacity to withstand a criminal trial.
According to Minister Marshall, the amendment to the bill will bring the country closer to international standards.
The intention of this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is to bring Antigua and Barbuda more in line with the international recommendation that the age of criminal responsibility not be set too low so as to criminalize our children when at times they are victims of adults who incite them to commit criminal activity.
Islands devastated by recent hurricanes will benefit from $800 million in assistance from the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, and that's to help with their recovery efforts. President of the CDB, Dr. Warren Smith, made the announcement on Wednesday and said the money would be available to borrow in member countries, that's the BMCs, over the next 5 years. He said the CDB could not emphasize enough the urgent need for liquidity in the aftermath of natural disasters. Smith said the bank has reorganized its operations and put in place the appropriate support and policy framework as it expands its capacity to assist its BMCs in the areas of disaster management.
The financial cost of responding to natural disasters has been increasing as the frequency and intensity of these events continue to rise. Our objective at CDB, therefore, is not simply to enable BMCs to rehabilitate damaged infrastructure, but to also improve their resilience to such disasters by building back better and building back stronger. To incentivize these countries to invest in climate-resilient infrastructure, we at the Caribbean Development Bank must be able to also offer grant and other attractively priced financial resources.
The CDB president said the 2017 Atlantic hurricane season was a painful reminder of the region's inherent vulnerabilities, and he says the challenges of the region are much bigger than the CDB could handle on its own. The bank has therefore been drawing on resources from its development partners as well as its own resources to meet this challenge.
Pleased to report that in 2017 we stepped up our resource mobilization efforts, which led to additional financing in the form of a second climate action line of credit for around $144 million from our long-standing partners, the European Investment Bank, including an estimated $24 million for emergency post-disaster rehabilitation.
Meantime, the CDB is recommending the establishment of a special body to manage the recovery in islands that were damaged by Hurricanes Irma and Maria last September. The bank is projecting growth in 2%, that's in two of the affected islands, Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda, this year, driven mainly by infrastructure projects. And Director of Economics at the CDB, Dr. Justin Ram, told CMC News that there needs to be a single body on each island to coordinate those efforts. He said Dominica is already considering setting up a Recovery Development Institute to manage its own recovery in the medium term. And he believes that countries could learn from Grenada and how that island managed its rebuilding in the wake of devastation caused by Hurricane Ivan in 2004.
If we look back to what happened in Grenada after the Hurricane Ivan struck there in 2004, Grenada actually had set up a disaster recovery agency which managed the recovery process effectively. This is a type of agency that we are now advocating for in some of our other board member countries that were affected by the storms. I know that also in British Virgin Islands they are looking at this. And I know even more specifically in Turks and Caicos Islands that they are also considering the setting up of a delivery mechanism to assist them in prioritizing not only their developments as it relates to the hurricanes, but also for wider economic and social development as well.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines has implemented a new rule for US dollar payments to Trinidad and Tobago. From March 1st, those payments will require the prior approval of the Director of Finance and Planning. Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez says the move is in order to ensure that farmers and other exporters receive timely payments for their sales to and from the Twin Island Republic. Approval for US dollar transactions would become necessary as the Ministry of Finance in Kingstown enforces the relevant provisions of the Exchange Control Act. The move comes amidst a protracted impasse in which Vincentian itinerant traders are unable to convert their earnings in Trinidad and Tobago to Eastern Caribbean dollars. Gonzalez says the Ministry of Finance will be happy to revisit this decision in the future if all parties can arrive at a less bureaucratically cumbersome solution. He says it is wrong and unfair for St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be so disadvantaged in this matter. Gonzalez added that the foreign exchange issue with Trinidad and Tobago is one for urgent analysis and urgent attention. Jamaica and the U.S. make a plea to Venezuela. We'll tell you what they're appealing for after the break. Stay with us.
You got to be there, you got to be there. You got to be there at the relay fair. Plenty speed, plenty action, stand spot, steam it to come from the track. The Barbados Relay Fair, Saturday, February 10th at the National Stadium from 10 a.m. Admission $20 with family packages available. Teams from Guyana, St. Vincent, Grenada, Bermuda, Trinidad, and Guadeloupe competing against the best local talents. Your sponsors are Ensure, Colgate, Paula Barange, CMC, Williams Industries, Seidel, Sports and Gang, Burger King, Elite Sports, Caribbean Sports Management Enterprises, Regional Management Services, and Nuts and Bolts Nutrition. Remember to follow us at Barbados Relay Fair on Instagram.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Jamaica and the United States have appealed to Venezuela to uphold human rights and allow for free and fair elections in the country. At a media brief on Wednesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness and United States Secretary of State Rex Tillerson expressed disappointment with the actions of the Nicolas Maduro government. Tillerson, who was in Jamaica on the last leg of a visit to Latin America and the Caribbean, said both countries have a strong commitment to democratic values.
Both heartbroken to see what's happening in Venezuela as we're seeing what was once a thriving democracy dismantled before our very eyes. It's the reason we intend to take all actions possible to persuade the regime to return to its full constitutional authorities, return it to the hands of the Venezuelan people.
Holness said Jamaica has always supported human rights as well as peace in the region and wants to see a return to democracy in Venezuela for the people of that Spanish-speaking nation.
Supports human rights. Jamaica supports peace in this region, and Jamaica wants to see the people of Venezuela being able to enjoy their democracy. This is a principle that has nothing to do with any other country. This has always been Jamaica's position. We wish the best for the people of Venezuela.
Prime Minister Holness said Jamaica and the U.S. agreed that positive engagement between the government and the opposition in Venezuela is essential. Meantime, the Jamaica government is moving full speed ahead with plans to buy back the 49% stake in Petrojam owned by a Venezuelan firm. Petrojam is Jamaica's only petroleum refinery and is jointly owned by PDVSA, a subsidiary of Petróleos de Venezuela, that's PDVSA, and the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica. TVJ's Andrea Chisholm reports on the Andrew Holness administration's effort to get all the shares back in the government's hands.
Sanctions imposed by the U.S. on Venezuela have affected the Petrocaribe Agreement and Jamaica's energy sector. Since the Venezuelan-based PDVSA have a stake in Petrojam, correspondent banks in the United States have been scrutinizing transactions, forcing Jamaica to import oil from other sources.
We now don't currently import oil from Venezuela. With the new dynamics in the global trade in energy, and with the United States now becoming a net exporter of energy resources, Jamaica can, in this new paradigm, benefit from that.
Secretary Tillerson said the United States will be doing a study to see what they can do to soften the impact on Jamaica and other countries. As for PDVSA's 49% stake in Petrojam,
the government of Jamaica has made a necessary allocation within this year's budget to pay for the shares. We are currently finalizing the valuation, the more up-to-date valuation. A valuation was done summer of last year, and a current valuation should be in my hand come the end of this week.
Grenada's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell has called on citizens to celebrate the country's gains and work towards consolidating them. He was addressing a military parade and rally in St. George's on Wednesday afternoon in observance of the 44th anniversary of political independence from Great Britain. Mitchell's comments come just weeks before the country goes to the poll in a general election. He cautioned attendees not to risk the hard-fought successes in a bet on speculations, promises, innuendos and character assassination.
This nation has come together in the last few years to rise out of economic stagnation. The social compact among the government, the churches, trade unions, business community, and the non-governmental organizations and civil society has been a model tool demonstrating what can be achieved when we join hands together across this nation. Today, on this 44th anniversary, we celebrate unity, and we call on all to join that unity train.
Dr. Mitchell again praised the social compact for the success of the just completed homegrown structural adjustment program that was backed by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. He also used the opportunity to encourage citizens to make a commitment to becoming part of the social compact, regardless of who wins the March 13th general elections.
Those of us who have answered the call in the last 5 years were not afraid to make the tough decisions, because we knew that in spite of the challenges, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique must always come first.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, a shock return to West Indies cricket. Details when we return.
You got to be there, you got to be there. You got to be there at the relay fair. Plenty speed, plenty action. Stand, spot, steam it to come from the track. The Barbados Relay Fair, Saturday, February 10th at the National Stadium from 10 a.m. Admission $20 with family packages available. Teams from Guyana, St. Vincent, Grenada, Bermuda, Trinidad, and Guadeloupe competing against the best local talents. Your sponsors are Ensure, Colgate, Paula Barange, CMC, Williams Industries, Seidel, Sports and Gang, Burger King, Elite Sports, Caribbean Sports Management Management Enterprises, Regional Management Services, and Nuts and Bolts Nutrition. Remember to follow us at Barbados Relay Fair on Instagram.
Singer Christopher Martin will drop his new album this summer. The album, which is still untitled, is to be released by VP Records. It is a follow-up to Martin's 2017 release Big Deal, which was released in February last year. Big Deal features 17 tracks, including collaborations with Destiny Mariah, Busy Signal, Chip, and Tanto Blacks. Like his Big Deal album, Martin says he had a say in the direction and production aspects of the forthcoming album.
About you. Every night I dream about you.
Traveling across the oceans to another
place. Just need some time to make you understand
that she could love you better, wrong, so wrong. You had the best girl all along.
Englishman Richard Pybus has made a shock return to West Indies cricket as high performance director just over a year after leaving the post of director of cricket. In the new role, the 53-year-old will be tasked with working with Chief Selector Courtney Brown, Director of Cricket Jimmy Adams and regional coaches to improve the high-performance programs and standards within franchise cricket. Cricket West Indies said in a statement that his role will also include but will not be limited to standardizing coaching and preparation for regional teams and overseeing a talent identification program from the under-19 level all the way up to the international level. Pybus was appointed Director of Cricket in November 2013 and spent 3 years in the role before being replaced by former Test captain Adams in January last year. Since then, Pybus was overlooked for vacant head coach positions with the India, Bangladesh and South Africa national teams. He has in the past coached Pakistan and also had a short stint with Bangladesh. Pybus was also instrumental in overseeing the implementation of the Professional Cricket League in the Caribbean 4 years ago. Jamie Merchant claimed a 5-wicket haul as the Jamaica 11 held England Lions to a draw in their 3-day warm-up match at Sabina Park on Wednesday. Resuming the final day on 80 for 3 in their second innings, the Lions were dismissed for 230 with Joe Clark top scoring with 73. Ben Fowkes chipped in with 37 while Dan Lawrence got 35. But off-spinner Merchant put the brakes on the innings with 5 for 35 from his 10.4 overs. Set an improbable target of 258 for victory, the Jamaican 11 were given a 42-run opening stand by Trevon Griffith, who scored 20, and Kennard Lewis, who hit 19 before 3 wickets fell for 7 runs in the space of 12 balls. Tentatively placed on 49 for 3, Captain Paul Palmer, who made an unbeaten 21 in nearly 2 hours, posted 44 for the 3rd wicket with Asad Fudderdin and 38 in an unbroken 4th wicket stand with first innings century maker Aldane Thomas, who scored 24 not out to prevent any further collapse. Pacer Paul Colling and left-arm spinner Jack Leake ended with 2 wickets apiece. Lions will now travel to the north of the island where they face West Indies A in the opening 4-day test starting Sunday at the Trelawney Multipurpose Complex. Still in cricket, an unbeaten knock of 71 from Kirk Edwards helped guide Windward Islands Volcanoes to a 6-wicket win against Hampshire CCC in March 18 of the regional Super 50 competition at Kensington Oval. Hampshire was dismissed on 200 mark when they opted to bat first. James Adams top scored with 83, while Lewis McManus added 28 and Bradley Taylor chipped in with 24 from 50 deliveries. Dominican off-spinner Shane Shillingford was the pick of the bowlers with figures of 4 for 32, while Kesrick Williams and Kaveem Hodge picked up 2 wickets each. Well, in reply, Edwards' 71 from 91 balls was the icing on the cake for the Windward Islands after he and Andre Fletcher set up a 94-run partnership. Fletcher was dismissed on 53. Fast bowler Fidel Edwards captured 3 wickets for 52 runs, while Christopher Wood bagged 1 wicket for Hampshire. Well, after the match, Volcanoes captain Shane Shillingford heaped praises on his team. It was their first win since the start of the tournament, and the captain says the Volcanoes are now a better organized team.
We hadn't started the tournament well, You know, I'm sure you would agree that the type of team we have, we're not getting the results that we want. But, you know, sometimes as a team, you know, the more games we play, the more together we get. So we slowly get in there. You know, we just know that our best game is yet to be played. So, you know, we just maintaining as a team together and, you know, hopefully finish on a high in the tournament.
Shillingford was adjudged man of the match. He finished with 4 for 32, while Windies limited over seamer Kesrick Williams and left-arm spinner Kavim Horrocks picked up 2 wickets apiece. Shillingford says conditions at Kensington Oval worked in their favour. And finally, in hockey, Trinidad and Tobago's stickmen fell to their second straight defeat in the Indoor Hockey World Cup in Germany. They were crushed 11 goals to 5 by Poland after a 7-2 hammering at the hands of the Czech Republic in their opening game over the weekend. TV6's Sergio Dufour took in the action in Berlin and filed this report.
After suffering an opening loss to Czech Republic, TNT's stickmen were pumped up and ready to get back to winning ways. And it was looking like TNT stood a good chance of accomplishing their goal. They opened the scoring through Solomon Eccles from a penalty corner in the 8th minute. Probably shell-shocked, the Polish conceded another goal 1 minute later. Mikel Pierre worked an excellent play to convert a field goal, 2-0 for TNT. Then in the 14th minute, Pierre worked his magic again and did what his team needed by converting this effort on the counter-attack. 3-0 at that stage in favor of the men in red. The 5th-ranked Polish would, however, pull 2 goals back at the end of the first quarter. TNT added 2 more goals, but the second quarter was the most productive for their opponents. They banged in some 9 goals. 11-5 is how this game would end. TNT letting slip the early lead. They will next face Australia tomorrow. The Calypso stickmen are not out yet. The sequence of quarterfinals will be determined after the pool matches have been completed. Sergio Dufour.
And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Again, the major developments of this day. Bermuda's Governor John Rankin finally signs off on the Domestic Partnership Act, which ends same-sex marriages in the British Overseas Territory. And in sport, Englishman Richard Pybus makes a shock return to West Indies cricket as high-performance director, just over a year after leaving the post of Director of Cricket. Now that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, log on to KhanaNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching. Do have yourselves a good night.